Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Go Premanandi, Prabhupada ki jai, Shishintai Sachi Sutta ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai, Radha ParisIsvara ki jai, Grantarashna Bhagavatam ki jai, Anam Sankirtan ki, Brihat Madanga ki jai. Go Premanandi, all glorious to the assembled deities, all glorious to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glorious to Sri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastavitale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namai, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharni, Nirvasesha Sunyavadi, Pastacharya Shatani, Hare Krishna. So, I think everybody can understand English, is that correct? English, okay? So today, it's nice to be back here again. It's very important Dham, established by Srila Prabhupada. Although there were many temples around Europe, all of which are dhams, holy places. Deities have been installed over the last 5 decades or so in many cities and towns around Europe. In England, of course, England is in one sense part of Europe, but aside from England, we have temples now in, I guess, every country, including, well, there's a preaching center in Albania, and pretty much every country in Europe at least has a preaching center, even in the Baltics. Somebody or some center is there, and maybe not every one of them, but pretty much all the different states of the Baltics, and many of them all over. Even in Iceland there are devotees. Deities are there. So, but France, Germany, but in Germany, Srila Prabhupada installed a small set of Radha Krishna deities. Small set in Hamburg. And in Holland, Prabhupada installed Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. And as far as my knowledge goes, as in England, of course, they were the only outside of France deities installed by Prabhupada. Maybe he installed some deities in Stockholm, I'm not sure. But here in France, Srila Prabhupada installed the only large Radha Krishna deities, Radha ParisIsvara. So in one sense we could say they are the most significant, maybe this is wrong, but in one sense we can look at it like that, the most significant deities in Europe. Radha ParisIsvara. All over the world, devotees know probably more Radha ParisIsvara than any other deities in Europe. They're famous throughout the world. So this is a very special dham. And later on, of course, Nitai Sachi Sutta. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra were already there. Even in 1970, maybe 71, they appeared. They were here. I came here in 72, not here, but whatever. Fontenay, the Rose, therefore Rose. In the south of Paris, where they were staying, a house, maybe the size of this one also, with not much of a garden, but similar. And they were staying, they were being worshipped there. I think they were in the garage, the deities. Or the temple, maybe into, I think so, can't remember. And it was quite crowded. There were maybe 40 devotees staying there. And there was less accommodation than here. We were staying in the attic, as far as I remember. So it was all enthusiastic Sankirtan. There were one or two sannyasis staying in the temple. Pushta Krishna was there, Swami. And I think, I don't know who exactly, I think Indrajana Maharaj was there, and Lochanananda, and so many devotees were there. You don't know them. Maybe Yogeshwara and Jyoti Maya were there also, I don't know. I don't remember, but they were all around at that time, Harivalas. So many big devotees, young devotees then, very enthusiastic, and devotees were staying minimum 8 to 10 per room. And sleeping in the corridors, sleeping everywhere. It was unheard of to have your own room. It was unheard of to have a mattress. It was unheard of to have a pillow. Unheard of. Hot water was unheard of. Well, we knew what it was, but we didn't use it. That was the temple there. And of course, Krishna then moved to the facility near Arc de Triomphe, Rue de Sceaux, a prestigious area of Paris, a larger property, still awkward, triangular shaped building like many of those corner buildings in the circle areas in Paris. They're kind of triangular like this. So, but it was bigger facilities and it was very nice. We went there several times over the next 5 years before they moved again. And probably 70, I don't know what year they moved, 78 maybe they moved from there to another. In that building, Rue de Sceaux, in 1973, Srila Prabhupada installed Radha ParisIsvara. It's a famous event in history of ISKCON. All over the place. We were just in the temple in Delhi, Radha Parthasarati Mandir, Sant Nagar, and they have a beautiful display of deities around ISKCON behind the altar in the Parikrama Path. The first deity is Radha ParisIsvara. And Prabhupada installing Radha ParisIsvara. The funny thing is they didn't put the name of where it was. Every other deity had the name, but there they didn't put the name. Why, I don't know. And Radha ParisIsvara. And of course Prabhupada also literally installed Krishna Balaram here in New Mayapur. As the only Krishna Balaram installed by Prabhupada other than in Vrindavan in the whole world. And that Dham is the only remaining property of ISKCON in Europe, which was there during Prabhupada's time. None of the others were there except for London, of course, and that's only the manor. The manor was the only other property, if you count England, in the whole of Europe, which in one sense is a direct Prabhupada Tirtha. Back to the New Mayapur and back to Vedanta Manor. So So they moved in 70 whatever, 7 or 8, I don't know, from probably 78, yes it must have been, or even 79, because I was here in 77 and they were still in Rue. And I may have been here in 78 also. And I never went to the next building they had, which was near Rivoli, somewhere near Châtelet-Léal. Again, a very prestigious place. A bigger facility, I understand. But the problems which we were facing in the city centre were unending. The local authorities were simply black and white against us being there. And they try every trick under the sun without directly telling us to make it impossible for us to operate. Putting one restriction after another. And complaints were numerous from the neighbours, and nothing could really be done in terms of programs, expansion, facade. Everything was, what do you say, limited. Then they got a property, a beautiful palace, maybe 60 kilometers out of the city, Ermenville, way out past Charles de Gaulle Airport, way out on the northeast of Paris. Gorgeous property. I was there also in 1980, I guess. 81, I can't remember. But a beautiful place. I mean, absolutely, totally befitting the worship of Radha ParisIsvara. But for whatever reason, we won't get into that. It wasn't to be, and after some years there, they were basically ejected from that property. Various reasons, is a long story. And then the day Radha ParisIsvara went to New Mayapur, they had nowhere in Paris to live. They were like in exile in New Mayapur for some time, 6 months or something. All the deities were there. They had all the sets of deities were there. And then it was Buddha Mandalapu actually who decided the deities should come back to Paris. And so they got a very nice place actually, in Noisy-le-Grand. They rented it, and it was certainly more, let's say, facility-wise and even location-wise, better than what we've had since. But it was on rent, so generally that isn't a very secure situation. So the owner decided he wanted to do something else with the building, and we had to move out. They both had to move out. Well, that would have been probably the early part of this century or the late part of last century. I don't know. I wasn't around at that time, on the other side of the world. But then they moved, and there was a house right next door which was more or less it wasn't derelict, but it wasn't far off being derelict. You know the word derelict? What would you say in French, derelict? You would know to translate derelict. Look it up. D-E-R-E, derelict. D-E-R-E-L-I-C-T, derelict.
Does it mean broken down? Or
it does, but you get the exact meaning in French, so the nice word to learn. It's quite a common word in English, derelict. D-E-R-E-L-I-C-T, derelict. It can mean, as I say, it wasn't actually broken down exactly, but it wouldn't have been long before it could have been declared derelict. It was a small house. Huh? You understand what that means? Broken down house, which is... It wasn't, as I say, it wasn't actually like that, but it was not far short of that. So the Deities moved there because they had no choice. And it was so small, it was about half the size of this house. I remember I stayed there a few times. I had to sleep. You want a chair, Navadweep? Bring her a chair, please. Navadweep is a very senior devotee, Navadweep Ishwari from Melbourne, very senior devotee there, wonderful disciple of Jayapataka Maharaj. Pujari, cook, Pujari, Sankirtan devotee, teacher, you name it. And her wonderful son, Aravind, who's here, professional accountant, professional. Wonderful devotees from, I've stayed with them, visited them many times in Melbourne, old friends. For many decades. I've been with my servant for many years when I was in Australia. He was 14 years old at that time. So, yeah, they moved there. And when I went there, the only place to sleep was in the Pujari paraphernalia room. I'd sleep underneath the deities' dresses. Little tiny room, about half the size of this, full of dresses, and we would sleep under the dresses. The temple room was half the size of this. This room is about almost, not quite, you could get about 10 devotees in the room. That was it. The deities, everything was smaller. The deities were like literally in front of each other. Literally in front of each other. Then after some years, collective endeavor, and Nitai Gosundar and a team, Shiva Maharaj, and many, Gopalbhatta, Advaita Chandran, different devotees, I believe, worked together, and they raised not a large amount, but large enough to buy a property. So many years, you see, after they moved out of that palace, they didn't own any property. They were owning then that palace too, so we hadn't fully paid for it, but it was more or less owned. After that, different problems were there, and most of the capital was lost, I'm afraid, unfortunate reasons. And then they managed to purchase the property, not this one, as you know, 3 or 4 doors. We call it doors in England, like houses along the road there. It was kind of I don't know what it was before exactly, but it was many rooms in a moderately sized building just along the road there. But they deemed it unsuitable for a temple to have them purchased. Not only because where we were, which was the main thing, but the outlet, the design of the building and this and that wasn't very suitable. Staircase right in the middle of the only decent sized room, right in the middle, boom. So it was very awkward. One thing led to another, and then this man living here was a Turkish Christian. I came here one day with Peter Vasprabhu, I remember. We were sat just outside where the shoes are now. Maybe they're there still, outside the kitchen there. We were sat there with him, and he was Turkish Christian. He was offering us herbal tea and fruit and things. We sat there. They were talking about different things, and Preacher made a good friend with him, and he offered this bill. Peter Vasprabhu made a good friend with him. And he said, well, if you're looking for a place, because they were using this as a meeting place for a small group of Turkish Christians. As you know, they've got a place across the road now. So they were looking for a bigger place. So he wanted to sell out from here. It was too big for him as a householder, was a married man. He was going to move anyway, so they wanted to sell this place. So he offered it to us at a reasonably decent price at the time. And Krishna's arrangement, one wonderful devotee, you all know him. I can't mention his name, but he doesn't want to be mentioned. But he more or less paid 2/3 of the cost, which was almost €500,000. The total cost was nearly three-quarters of a million. Maybe about €750,000. So he donated with no conditions, about 2/3 of that. No conditions. And he himself didn't have a house to live in. He rented a place nearby. Nowadays, sometimes people give donations and they think they own the place. That means they've not given 1 cent. Not 1 cent. Not really a donation. Donation means you have no conditions. You depend on Krishna. If you go for conditions, then that's another thing. That's also nice, but it's not the same thing. So another devotee gave or lent money, and they purchased this property. So then they had 2 properties. None maybe 2 years before, 1 year before, they had no properties owned, and then 2 properties owned. So, for unfortunate reasons beyond our control, we had the guest house was sold. That became a guest house, as you know, and that was sold, and then we were just left with this building. It was a long story, we won't tell it. There are different angles of looking at everything. So we're here now, in this property, which has a nice garden, and the buildings are, in one sense, nice, but a little small. A little small. A little distanced, a little small. So let's see what Radha ParisIsvara's next desires are. We tend to, move and think and do this and do that, but the reality is it's their temple. It's their decision. The more we make ourselves their selfless instruments, the more that they'll reveal themselves. If we want to be conditional, they'll be conditional too. They reciprocate according to our surrender. Devotional service is unconditional. It's not I like, I don't like. It's really tuning in to the will of Krishna. That's what Krishna consciousness means. It doesn't mean I impose my impressions and that is the truth. But it's tuning into the will of Krishna, what he wants. If you read Prabhupada, and to me, again, I repeat it 100,000 times, maybe not that much, but a lot, that the mission statement from Srila Prabhupada is contained in Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma. The mood of pure devotion. The spirit. This is a movement of spirit. It is not a movement of matter. When we're on the material platform, we see everything as a material move. But it's not. Krishna consciousness is a spiritual movement. It has nothing to do with the material world, other than to transform it. But transformation of one of consciousness is not one of buildings, is not one of people, numbers, money. It's a transformation of consciousness. And it's not a transformation from ignorance to goodness either, or passion, or whatever it is. It's transcending the modes of nature, and understanding, and simply making one's will the same as that of the Lord. That's what Krishna consciousness is. Not that the Lord has to make his will the same as ours, which is the material way of looking at Krishna. I love Krishna because he gives me this. He makes me feel happy. That's not love. That's a business arrangement. Of course, we come in on that business arrangement mentality, but that has to change if we want to spread Krishna consciousness. We can move the Prabhupada, selfless. We tend to have trunk loads of conditions, trunk loads of self-concerns, trunk loads of desires, aside from pleasing Krishna. I mean, suitcases full of them, baggage. It's hard to progress. Everyone knows if you have to carry, and you've just experienced that, 2 suitcases, 23 kilos each, it's hard to move. Some devotees can hardly carry 23 kgs, what to speak of 46. That's just a gross material example, but if we have these baggages, subtle baggages, it's very hard to progress. Very hard to convince. Very hard to remain. And, Krishna reciprocates accordingly. So the more the devotees are willing to give their lives to the service of Radha ParisIsvara, and the mood of Prabhupada, then without any ado, Krishna will lift up Govardhan Hill like a feather. Like a feather. Not difficult. We can't lift Govardhan Hill with 1,000,000 cranes. You know what a crane is? One of those things that goes up and picks things high in the air. You see them going above tall buildings, and they pick up big pillars and cement and bricks and things. to build tall buildings. Even if you had 1 million of those, you still couldn't pick up Govardhan Hill. Krishna picked up with a little pinky of his left hand. He could have spun it around if you want. Easy as pie, as they say. Means very easy. So everything's easy for Krishna. He's just waiting for us to connect with him, that's all. And then whenever is required, he'll provide. Whatever means he chooses, we think we're making it. But if you read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's a beautiful pastime of Mrigari the hunter. You, I think, all know the story of Mrigari the hunter. Famous Narada Muni and the hunter. And Haribol Jiva Pram Prabhu, you're heading off to make some money. Well, we were looking at 25 million as a down payment, okay? As a down payment, and then the other 250 million after 3 months, okay?
Coins of 2 or 1 euro?
They have half-cent coins, okay? You can lorry 500 containers full of 1 cent coins. Yeah, no problem. Any form whatsoever, if you like. Go for it. Krishna will provide. Thank you. So, that's how Krishna consciousness spreads. Otherwise, Krishna still reciprocates, so things happen, but it's like as the consciousness rises, you'll see everything else rise. You may have $1 million and you lose it all. Or you spend it and it doesn't serve the purpose. You end up with everyone fighting with each other and looking at it as their own property and stupid things like that. And just simply attracting like-minded persons who do nothing but, keep us in the material world. Temples are meant for selfless devotion. Selfless devotion. Cultivating that mentality. They're not meant for my agenda. They're not meant for, making money. They're not meant for being the boss. They're meant for cultivating anyavilasita shunyam. Selfless devotion. Not everyone's, in fact, not many already in that sense. So the temple is there to give an opportunity for others to move in that direction. It's very important. We have a long way to go, perhaps, but that's the idea. And Dham, that's what makes it a Dham, a Tirtha. Not just because the deities are here, that's one thing, but they will only reveal themselves accordingly. And they don't really taste the Dham. We were just in the Govardhan eco-village, right, Mananda? And Eknath, you were there. I don't think anyone else was here with us. You weren't there, Priyarani, were you? No, you weren't there. And you may have heard of the Govardhan eco-village. Some of you have been there. You've been anymore? You've been there? You've been there?
Yes.
We're aspiring. So some of you have been in Navadvip? Govardhan eco-village in near Bombay, near Mumbai. No. You would have never been there. No, you been there, Yasomati? Dinata, you didn't go. It's near the Govardhan eco-village near Mumbai. It's a small village. There's no village hardly. It's just some houses nearby. And it's in the middle of kind of a hilly region. There's hills all around. There's a river nearby. It's kind of a slightly more I wouldn't say fertile, but a little bit more greener area than most of the Ghat, the Western Ghats, they call them. Hills, high hills. They're quite high. Not mountains, but they're in between high hills and mountains. It's a pleasant area. The devotees under Radhanath Maharaj's inspiration, Gauranga Prabhu and others, have created a really, I think, who else was with us? Jivananda, anyone else? Pardon? Michael Chandra and Gaurnataraj. Huh?
Padarenu.
Padarenu and Gaurnataraj. About 7 of us were there. And it was one of the most memorable experiences. Of really feeling a little bit of a Dham. When you go to Vrindavan, the Dham is there fully, but sometimes we're not. Sometimes our mind is distracted by various tests which take place in Vrindavan. The enthusiastic monkeys, and so many other things. The weather, the dust, you're feeling sick, the prasadam, the heat, the local enthusiastic pandas. You can go on and on and on and on. Different things sometimes distract our attention. But they've created a situation which is a miniature replica of Vrindavan. Miniature. There you have Radha Govinda Mandir, Radha Raman, Radha Damodar. You have the Jamuna River, you have Radha Kund, Shamakund, Govardhan, Varshan, Nandagram, Gokul, and various Talavan and this van and that van, Kamyavan. They've created atmospheric arrangements. Madam Mohan, a very amazing temple of Madam Mohan. It is almost the size of the Madam Mohan temple in Vrindavan. It's on a hill. And the Radha Damodar temple, frankly speaking, and partly because of various things that have changed, but I felt as much in Prabhupada's room in the Radha Damodar temple in Govardhan eco-village as I do in Vrindavan itself. I didn't feel the need to go to the Radha Damodar temple. I felt I was more in the Radha Damodar temple in the Govardhan eco-village than I don't have a good consciousness, so it's hard for me to experience it. But it was very extraordinary. And the Jamuna Arti at night is, we have videos of that. But such a transcendental experience. Huh? The only problem was they say you can't bathe in the Yamuna there. You just take 3 drops of water. It's not very deep, I think. It's like they created it around a certain area, not over the whole property. They made that. Vishram Ghat is there where you start your parikrama, and then there's a whole parikrama path around the whole of the 12 forests, around Mount Govardhan Hill. And then they have evening arti to Radhakund, or Giriraj arti also, sitting at Radhakund, offering the arti to Giriraj, original deity from Govardhan Hill, big one. Gorgeous experience, a large ghost show with many cows and beautiful guest houses, Ayurvedic clinic and Ayurvedic restaurant also for those who want to go healthy. And every day thousands of people are coming all the way there just to be there. Weekends, tens of thousands are coming out. And it's at least 2 to 4 hours, depending on the traffic, from Bombay. From the centre of Bombay, it will be probably 5 hours minimum drive, probably. The roads are dreadful, right? Absolutely terrible. What to do? They're all broken. And they're trying to fix them. I don't know. Eventually they may be fixed, I guess. But it's definitely something out of this world. It's not part of this world. It's a real oasis. And it helps. It makes it much easier sometimes for us who are very materialistic and maybe even commit offences when we're in Vrindavan because of our offensive mentality. But there it makes it so much easier to without all the discomforts, you could say, physical for those who are on the material platform, mental, to appreciate the Dham. Very sweet, very sweet. Anyway, I don't know how I got there. We were talking about Dhams and accessibility and consciousness. So they've created that out of consciousness. Money comes, Lakshmi comes, but it's created primarily out of Vrindavan consciousness. It's not created by bricks and stones and rocks and this and that. It's Vaikuntha or Vrindavan consciousness which attracts, and then the Lord guides others to fulfill his desires. Making our desires, it's one of the symptoms of surrender, that we have no desire separate than that of the Lord. Surrender. And that's where Krishna consciousness really begins. We're practicing, we're cultivating, we're hoping, whatever it is, but at that point of full surrender, that's when Krishna consciousness, selfless devotion. We don't want to show it off. We don't want to be recognized. We don't care for that. We want Krishna to be recognized. We want our spiritual masters to be recognized. When we're not asking for anything, Nidanana Janana Sundaram Kavitamba. We don't want anything in return. Trinada peace and Ichena. The mood of real devotion starts there. We're trying to follow the Mahajans, those who have that consciousness. And if we follow them sincerely and faithfully, and as Prabhupada said, the only question we should ask is, how can I serve you? Most of our questions are, Maharaj, can you serve me? I have a problem. Isn't it? 99%. The Guru is some kind of, or one-stop shop where you can get everything you want. Problem, this problem, that problem, this problem, that problem, this problem, that problem, this problem, that problem. The Prabhupada writes, he didn't say, he wrote, the only question you should ask is, how can I serve you? That's what Prabhupada wrote. But to this day and age where everyone's so mucked up by modern society, education, social media, destroyed people, spoiled the penal rules, absolute disaster, spoiling people upside down, liberalism, all this is, destroyed the human being, basically, or the purpose of the human being, we could say. Where we see ourselves as the victim and other nonsense philosophy. And the world is pervaded by this, and everyone sees themselves in the center. It isn't the spirit of pure devotional service. It's not the goal of Varnashram. It's not just to accommodate our idiosyncrasies or our craziness. It's to get free of that and to live according to the will of Krishna in society. Well, what to do? We're all stuck in the same boat here. And Lord Chaitanya has kindly come and for this fallen creatures has given us the congregational chanting of the holy name, of which we do very little. If we do an hour a day, that's like a lot. Like a lot. And for most of us, it's not even that. Some it's nothing. We mumble a few rounds in between important things, like going on the internet or looking at our WhatsApp messages or watching the television or doing other things. And we're not going to see much of a transformation, are we? We have to associate with Krishna, associate with pure devotees of the Lord. And that doesn't just mean sitting around, waiting to be, praised or, whatever it is. But it means to be absorbing the truth, to be absorbing the spirit of pure devotional service, like that. We know that we have a long way to go, but that's the idea of, at least, of Sadhu Sangha. Prasanga Majaram Pasham. I'm going to have to learn that verse again. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. Which canto are you on?
8th canto.
8th canto. We won't have time to read today. That's okay, we'll read tomorrow. But the 3rd canto is very important. Teachings of Lord Kapila Deva. Very important. Devotional service. it really kicks off, it really starts with the same principle you see in the first canto of Bhagavad. Shu 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 dance. Starts, it begins, it doesn't end, it begins at that point. Sometimes we think it ends at that point, but that's the beginning. It's the beginning when we associate with those who are shu 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 dana, we have their nivritita shubhagyaman, those who have no material affection whatsoever. That doesn't mean they're callous to the suffering of people. They're absolutely concerned, but not from the material point of view, from the spiritual point of view. They may also operate apparently on the material platform only because people are on that platform, and to bring them forward they may also, in terms of feeding people, clothing people, etc., may be involved to some extent, but not really like a teacher teaching a subject matter. You're a teacher. No, you teach? No, you're in hospital. Anyone here a teacher? School teacher? You're a hostess, you're a hospital. Anyone here a teacher? You're teaching accountancy. So you know the subject. It's not like you're learning it. You may be teaching, simple accountancy to people who don't know anything, and you may say, what are you doing? You've got a degree or a master's in accountancy. What are you doing? You just, all you're doing is talking about simple, you can do more than, but you're helping people to progress in that subject matter. They can't absorb more. So sometimes the pure devotees do that. They just like Jesus Christ did it. He basically was preaching to persons who had zero spiritual concept at all. Zero. Absolutely zero. Totally on the material platform. So he took them from that platform by creating faith and a process where they can develop their love for God. That's the Acharya. That's the pure devotee. That's God himself when he comes. To give that process. So Lord Chaitanya has given this process, particularly the Sankirtan, the dancing and chanting, introduced the book distribution. This process is the only, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, the one and only infallible means of success. There is no other means. It's the one and only infallible. Other things, he said, are there simply to support Harinam Sankirtan. They have to be done, deity worship, management, this thing, that thing. But they're only, ultimately speaking, of course, you can attain perfection through any of the paths. But in this day, in Lord Chaitanya's mission, they are meant, he said, if they don't help us to increase our attraction for Harinam Sankirtan, they are an impediment. And you know what an impediment means? An obstacle on the path of devotion. So we may be preparing ourselves, we may not have that attraction, so the pure devotee engages in various acts of devotion, be it what it may. Prabhupada one time said that he had to rack his brains to think of things to do, to think of things for us to do, because we can't simply chant 24 hours a day. Cooking, cleaning, dressing, raising families, working to make money, doing this, all important because it connects everyone. Don't get it wrong, they have to be done. But ultimately it's to awaken an attraction for the chanting of the holy name. The other things have to be done also. We shouldn't think they're alternatives. They may be temporarily required in order to keep us going. We don't have any attraction for the holy name. But I do like this, or I do like that. That's okay. That's like a child learning how to grow up. That's fine. And they have an important part also in the overall Sankirtan movement. They're part of the overall Sankirtan, let's say, mission. Prabhupada established temples, he installed deities, he did so many things. He encouraged this, that, and the other, schools, farms, restaurants, everything is important. But it must be under understanding. Is there to develop. And if we're not developing attraction, then we may question ourselves why. It doesn't mean we give up what we're doing, but we question ourselves why. Maybe something needs to be adjusted here. Something needs to be adjusted. Because the Harinam Sankirtan is the process, you see. Harinam is the process to bring about the unity in diversity and to cleanse our heart. I mean, this is what Lord Chaitanya himself has said, Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahanta Bhagavina Varpana. Harinam Sankirtan is described by Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj as the emperor of sadhana. Is the emperor. Emperor means king of kings. Every sadhana is a king, but Harinam is the emperor, king of kings. You could include japa within it, but it's specifically congregational chanting. Our japa is like Sankirtan, we all chant verbally, orally, but then we don't really get together when we chant japa much. One sits here, one sits there, one goes upstairs, one goes to sleep, one goes on the mobile, one goes for a walk. It's not very congregational. And we're really chanting for ourselves. It is necessary also. Sensual instruction of Srila Prabhupada to chant at 16 rounds minimum. But congregational chanting should not be minimized in that sense. Be with the pujaris, I've said it over and over again. During the time when I was in London, during Prabhupada's time, the pujari was singing louder than anyone else in the temple room during the arti. As he's offering the arti, he's singing at the top of it, and oftentimes he's leading the kirtan. The one doing the arti. Nowadays they sit there like a dummy, counting numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, like this, right? You've got to remember who's next, and what mantra I have to chant next, and how many numbers I have to do, and this thing and that thing, I don't know. Maybe that's required for certain reasons, certain stages, but sometimes it's maybe a little bit extreme. I don't know. I'm not a pujari, so I'm not going to say more. Yes, quite often. Quite often. I mean, not spinning around, but quite going backwards and forwards like this. This often, Absolutely. Absolutely. And not in every case, but I've seen it. We've done that also. It's kirtan, the worship of the Lord, particularly Nitai Sachi Sutta Jaga, Baladev Subhadra Radha ParisIsvara. They're so happy when they see devotees dancing and chanting. We're here to make them happy, not we're here just to do things. We're here to make them happy. They're happy by our consciousness. Prabhupada said Krishna doesn't need our fancy food. He doesn't need our fancy food. He's got unlimited billions of gopis and goddesses of fortune who spontaneously present him with everything to satisfy his desire. We try to cook and prepare things according to the direction of the pure devotees so that it does become pleasing to Krishna. But otherwise he doesn't need it. This is for our benefit that we do arti. It's for our benefit that we're making sacrifice, that we're preparing. We sometimes think, I've done so much service. Another, let's say, unfortunate, but it is. Sometimes we have this mentality, I have done so much service. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's a ludicrous statement. Absolutely ludicrous. You know the word ludicrous? What does that mean in French? Ludicrous. What's the French word for ludicrous? You know it, Priyarani? Look it up. Ridiculous is a mellow form of ludicrous. It's almost madness, you could say. Like a mad statement. You know how to spell that? L-U-D-I-C. L-U-D-I-C-R-O-U-S. Ludicrous. You got it? Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's just say extremely ridiculous statement. A meaningless statement. Meaningless. I have done so much service. You think the gopis would say that? You think Prabhupada said that? Bhaktisiddhanta said that? Lord Chaitanya said that? Who are we following? Our minds. which have been, so warped because of, whatever association we've had. That has to change, doesn't it? You can never do enough service. Never. Even if you don't eat or sleep all day long, you've still not done enough service. Of course, we can't do that. We're not supposed to do that. We're not expected to do that right now. That's another kind of madness. In other words, we have to accept the fact we're mad. Simple as that. When Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, probably in 72, Radha Damodar temple, he was given his famous Nectar Devotion classes. And one devotee asked Prabhupada, it was Kartik, the season. Everybody knows what Kartik is. The month of Damodar. And, they'd heard that devotees, Vaishnavas perform different vratas, different austerities during Kartik. And so one of the devotees asked Prabhupada, is there something special we should do in Kartik as a vrata? And Prabhupada said, yes, you should chant 24 hours a day and don't eat and sleep at all. And the devotee picked up his speech, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Then he said, that's another kind of madness. He was like going to the extremes. Obviously you can't do that, nobody can. But he was saying that's what you really should do, 24 hours a day chant. Kirtaniya Sadahari. You can't do it. But we shouldn't keep. There are many letters, actually it's interesting. Prabhupada was asked many times, how can I please you? The question comes up many ways, maybe worded differently, but the same basic question comes up again and again. And I don't know, I've never done a survey, but I've come across many times where Prabhupada answers in a very simplistic way. He said, just keep engaged 24 hours a day in devotional service. Simple as that. He didn't say what, where, or how. Just keep engaged 24 hours a day in devotional service. And many times he said, or wrote that, or said that. Which means we do sleep, but your sleeping should be accordingly to facilitate the service. You do eat. We don't live to eat. We eat to live, or to serve. Our purpose is not just to, look forward to the prasad and the next meal or whatever it is. In the beginning, it's like that. But that's not our goal. We honor prasadam so we can facilitate our service. And we sleep to facilitate our service. Not, thank God, now I can sleep. I hope nobody wakes me up. You get like that sometimes. We all do it, so you're so exhausted. We're not on a transcendental platform. But whatever time we've got, we should try to utilize it in service. That's how the transformation takes place. If our service mentality is conditional, then we get a conditional response. And it's a mixed response, and we still have to carry our bags for a while more. But the temple at least should provide that haven, just like Govardhan Eco Village provides that haven. You forget, you don't need to worry about all the things of this world, do you? Even if there's a war going on, you kind of, when I look back at it, I completely forgot the rest of the world when I was there. It's like you weren't in the world anymore. You were there, right? Masika, right? You spent a month there, didn't you? He went to the clinic there, he did some treatment. Because he was on a different agenda, but if you didn't have another agenda, you were really not in this. It was like a bubble, like in this bubble. We're like in a submarine in the ocean, Of course, you're aware of it, but in one sense, unless you know you're in the ocean, you wouldn't know you're in the ocean. You're in a submarine, so you wouldn't know you're in there. You can completely forget about it and just absorb yourself in being in the forest of Vrindavan. So we can absorb ourselves in being in the forest of devotion, of bhakti. Vrindavan is a personification of bhakti, pure bhakti. Simple as that. And that we have Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas have given us that opportunity to immerse ourselves in the field of bhakti, in the forest of bhakti. Otherwise we're immersed ourselves, as in third canto also, the forest of enjoyment. And you can see what the result of immersing ourselves in the forest of enjoyment is. It's not at all enjoyable. It's miserable. But how to get out of that? It requires mercy. It requires mercy, and we simply have to take the mercy. We may need a lot of external help in order to keep going as well. But the essential factor is when we get the spiritual mercy. The mercy of the Lord coming through our parampara. And we have then, Prabhupada said, that mercy is already there, we just have to take it. He even said that about money. He said, money is there, you just have, it's already there, you just have to take it. We don't know how to take it. When we're pure and selfless, then why Krishna can give you any amount of money? Because you won't misuse it. Or lose it, or whatever. Just simply instrumental. Our eternal constitution, which is what we're supposed to be aiming for, isn't it? Is that right? We're supposed to be aiming at our eternal constitution, not some temporary arrangement. Is that correct? Do you want to awaken your eternal constitution or stay in a conditional state? What do you want? What do you want? The eternal constitution. So what is our eternal constitution? Servant of the servant, 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 servant. Eternally. Absolutely. Not 1 hour a day or 1 day a week or whatever it is. Nothing else. There is nothing else. The nature of the living entity is absolute service. Absolute service means existing for the pleasure of Krishna. It's not spontaneous. It's not like you have to think what to do. It is what you are. That's what it is. You are personification of a particular aspect of bringing pleasure to Krishna. What that is will be realized when one comes to that pure state. Or is realized and then revealed. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said it's not that you're told, that's not the way it works. It's you get that realization and it's confirmed by the Lord through his pure devotees. Not something you concoct, imagine, or even wish for. Okay, we're already 9:05 and this body is a bit run down. And I would request that someone open the gate in the morning, please. I was stood out there for nearly 30 minutes in the freezing cold this morning, banging and shouting and phoning and no one's answering. I got really washed out. So I don't know if there's a system here. Maybe you can put it on your agenda if you have a management. Somebody should open the gate or do something so that those can get in if they want to come out, if they live outside. Some system, a bell that rings or something or another. Whatever it is, something, I don't know. You may not want to put a bell because I know what happens. These crazy people going up and down the street ring it at midnight or 1 in the morning. But something at least so there's some code or something so that those can get in. I don't know. Think of it. Yeah. Small thing. Anyway. Hare Krishna. You could have 1,000,000 questions and 1,000,000 comments. This is more a question of, I know a lot of those would not feel comfortable, etc., but we're not comfortable anyway. Honestly speaking. If you feel uncomfortable, it basically means we're not comfortable. Something's amiss. Huh? And if we try to adjust the external things, thinking that will make us comfortable, that's another misdemeanor, another misunderstanding. There is a system where we have to deal with that. Administrative system has to deal with that, but that's only to facilitate the ultimate purpose, to get free of all these conditions, all this self-centeredness, etc. It takes time. It may take lifetimes. But somewhere that has to be there. Some place, somebody, somewhere. And Prabhupada brought that. And pure devotees, Uttama Bhagavats, come down to the Madhyam platform. They interact with the world around, you can say, with people entrapped in the material world, and give them kind of little hooks which they can hold on to and try to pull them out. But instead, we want to sometimes pull the pure devotee into our whirlpool, pull them into our Maya. Sometimes, they dedicate their life to preaching the holy name all over the world, and we want to try to find faults all the time. Pull them down. Tendency is also there. Why? Well, there may be different angles of vision there, but underlying is envy. There may be different surface reasons. If there's a genuine reason, that's something else, of course. This tendency is there. The material world, every single one of us in this world is to some degree or another affected by envy. Haribol, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Are you cooking today?
Yeah.
Wonderful. We're very fortunate. Every Wednesday you cook? Every Wednesday?
I'm trying to.
Fantastic. Marvelous. Wonderful. Working, living outside or whatever, family life, and coming in and doing service. Wonderful. Hare Krishna. Okay, it's time to fill the tank so we can, go on our daily mission, whatever that is. Your car doesn't run unless you fill the tank, does it? It runs out of juice. So you have to fill the tank accordingly, preferably with the right fuel. If you put the right fuel in, it won't work. Wrong fuel, it won't work, or it won't work very well. Quite often, people put diesel into a petrol or essence engine. You put diesel in, or vice versa. And then you wonder why the thing's not working. Or you put a poor grade in, it doesn't work very well. So try your best to keep it going and use it in Krishna's service. Same thing with the mind. Try not to absorb the mind too much in unnecessary thoughts or unnecessary, preliminary even still, unnecessary subject matters online or mobile or in discussions or whatever. It just simply adds to the problems, that's all. It may temporarily satisfy our mundane attachments or stress that we're under. It doesn't solve it. And maybe some regulation there. Ultimately, there has to be detachment from that. At this stage, we may be still somewhat attached. There's facility that married life is there, Varnashram is there, they should all be there. But they're to help us to get free, not to simply facilitate our attachments, but to help us to do, we may be attached, but to do it in a way which is pleasing to Krishna, which helps to purify us, according to our conditioning. Is that okay? You ready to go? Where? Ready to go? Vaibhav has to get a job, simple as that. We all have to go through these different stages of life. Not everyone has to go through it, but you have to go through what is required to go through in order to progress in our spiritual lives. Others may have already been through it. We don't need to go through it for whatever reason. Whatever gives us the necessary realizations and strength. For 99.9% of us, married life is required. Family, work, marriage. It's not absolutely required, but for most people, at this stage, it is required. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Shri Shri Nitai Sachi Sutta ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev ki jai. Shri Shri Radha ParisIsvara ki jai. Radha Isvara also. They were the deities first deities I saw in my life. Radha Isvara and Jagannath Baladev.